in that. So the herbs, as far as I'm concerned, is to help people, because people will have to shift from the pharmaceuticals to herbs and foods as their medicine.
That makes sense. I want to share a quote with you, something that I read earlier, and I wanted to get your take on it that goes with the herbs. I think Rahsan wrote this, and he said, to become a true herbalist means to become a seer and to look upon the plant as one's teacher. Have you found in your own work as an herbalist that this rings true, or does this make any kind of sense for you as an herbalist?
Yes, it makes sense. The plants were on the planet before humans, so they are our ancestors and they are our teachers. In most of my work here with tending the plants on the herb garden, I had a lot of book knowledge. Like I studied for about 10 years, herbs, aromatherapy, raphiology, Reiki, all these different modalities, energy medicine, color medicine, phytonutrition, all of those things. And in order for me to put them in context and really fine-tune this craft, I had to work with them. So I had to understand how they grew, what they need, factors like the environment that they grow, and sort of and try to make a correlation between the environments and their appearances with what they're used for in a human body. So for it all to make sense, you need to have a practical aspect.
That makes complete sense. So, if you could give everybody, let's say in this community, right, the surrounding, whatever blocks you want, maybe the whole borough even, if you could magically put knowledge into their heads about one herb or one plant, but tomorrow everybody would wake up and say, oh yeah, I know how to use that. I know how I need that in my home, or which one would it be?
For the neighborhood?
Yes.
There is a lot of violence in the neighborhood, so maybe I can say lavender. If everybody could just take a deep breath of lavender, I think it might be a better place to be.
Wow.
I would like to help come back, but if I can come back, I'll come back. I don't know if I can come back. Alright. Take care. Have a nice day. Alright, Katie. I'll try to come back.
I don't have any more questions. Is there something else you would like to say, something I didn't ask you that you think is important to know about you, your work, the herbs, any advice from budding herbalists or people who want to do social activism in the community, the way that you're doing it, anything you want to share that I haven't asked?
Well, I want to share with everyone that plants hold many of the secrets of life itself, and a lot of people overlook the plants, but technically they hold the secrets to health, well-being, wisdom, healing, abundance. Everything in life that you want to do, there's a plant ally that can help you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really beautiful.
Add to that. You know, I like to think that what's happening now represents the best face of humanity. When I got approached by United Methodist Church, Randolph Nugent was the council general for the worldwide organization. He says, I know that there's still healing going on in Africa, like in the Old Testament. He says, we'll have hospitals and things, but yet folks are lined up to see the traditional healers. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And when I went over there,
Where did you go? You music?
Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, Senegal.
And this was separate from your film project, or was that with the film
Some
project?
of it was separate. Some of it I was working for United Methodist Church. Because what they sent me to do was to work with hospitals and communities to see if I could create a liaison between traditional healers and hospitals.
Okay.
Right. Now, where do you think I met my greatest resistance? One, I was almost arrested in Mozambique because these Christians, they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Black Christians within the church, they were like, we don't believe you. They wanted to have me arrested because literally I had met in Maputo. I was in Maputo, and I had met with a traditional healers organization, probably about 100 people in the room. And I was brought there by Thapo. The woman was head of a traditional South African healers organization. So I was connected, and you know, at one point I had funds and I had helped different organizations out. So by the time I took a 6-hour drive to where this hospital, and darn it if I can't remember the name, it was up on the coast in Mozambique. All the healers up there already knew that I was coming, right? So when I went to approach the hospital, I had a whole crowd behind me. I was like, yo, you know. So they almost arrested me that time. So I said, you know, I'm coming back. I couldn't believe that. So I came back, same people in place, but I had all kind of papers and everything. I had met with the bishop, and so they couldn't say anything. And it was interesting, the doctors had no problems. They could see the connection between the scarification and the medicines that were put and vaccinations. They understood that, and that the African people just had their own ways of doing things. They could understand that, you know. And within the African system, divination fits right in, because they will talk then to the spirits around the person to find out what's going on and then figure out what in nature to actually do. Now, I can't do all that in my office because I would really, I mean, their problem was that people were leaving training too early and were getting killed, going insane. Healers, right? Because they get inflicted with Western arrogance, well, I know this and that. And they would go insane when exposed to certain energies and not knowing what they're doing. You see what I'm saying? Right. But, so, and the other were interesting, I met with one of the head bishops. This was in Zimbabwe. And he had a council, you know, other church members, and it was amazing. It was like a pre-60s conversation, because these guys were like, these are all Zimbabweans. We don't know anything about African medicine, but you know, we're really interested in these herbs. You know, the herbal medicine we're interested in. I said, well, where do you think they get the understanding for how to use the herbs? They don't want to hear anything about spirit or anything like that. But they kept coming back. It's amazing how they know. And with all these little propped up English accents and everything, these African people, they know nothing about their culture. But yet they start, a couple made comments reflecting on like certain burial things and things that were done. You know, that they had some remembrance of some of the cultural things that were done in those settings. But they had been so whitewashed, you know what I'm saying? So, speaking to me, an African American that had gone through that whole period of the 60s and everything like that, they didn't know what to do with me, because I could run them ragged either way. Historically, from the medical end and talking about the plants, you know. I told them, I said, let me send you Melodoma Some book of Water and Spirit and see what you got to say.
African healing is holistic, and the drumming and the art and the plants, it's not in the dancing.
Yeah.
Like, that's because I've had a sense that there's something different about what we do than what Western herbalists do, and I really, until I read the way that you put it, I wasn't able to articulate it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you brought it home.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. I think about that really heavily because there is something very different. Like, I feel that in Western herbalism, there's a lot of using plants and not really being thankful and grateful to them, speaking to them, learning about their language, which is so important in Africa, parts of Africa anyway. I've had Africanists and people that are from the continent say to me, "Don't say Africa, be really specific," you know. Right. So that's what I mean by that. But I'm talking a lot about West Africa, although other parts do these kinds of things
South
too.
Africa,
yeah.
Yes. Where you have your ancestry as well. Yes.
And even North Africa with their workings of henna and using frankincense and myrrh, and they're more akin to the Middle Eastern people, but they have their way with using plants and spices and all of that stuff. That's pretty incredible too. I'm really in love with henna, as you can see. Like every book, I always try to, how can I fit my henna in there? And I like to have my hands done up and my feet. And do you ever do that?
I really would like to, actually. I have a Mendi kit at home, and I haven't done it. And we live in an area that's largely like Guyanese Indian, and so people do it. And maybe I'll do it while I'm here. Because you write about some place that might be nice to your feet.
It's wonderful. It smells good, and it has so many herbs involved in it, like orange flower water. You can put rose water in it. It has the cloves and eucalyptus, so it has all these different energies to it. It's really, and then you just keeping it on and having to sit still with it, I think cultivates some kind of a patient quality and a stillness in you, you know, and just allows you to get in touch with something else besides the normal goings on. So.
And also, when you say that, I think about braiding and locking.
Same kind
and
of thing.
Twisting. Yes, because I like the ritual that you have in one of your books where you talk about sit down, play some music with your child, you know, your daughter in particular, you were saying, get the rose water or the detanglers ready, and then it becomes a ritual. Yeah. And I really like the ritualization of beauty. Yeah. Like, that's how I feel that you really frame it.
I do. I really believe in that, and I did that ritual with my daughter. She was tender-headed, of course, and I was reading about you this morning too, and your talk of being tender-headed too, and just sit in between like your aunt's legs.
My aunt Isola.
Yeah, that's what we do, and that's something that takes you to a different plane. You know, a lot of times music is playing, or the person will be humming a tune or something like that, and it really touches your spirit, opens you up.
Yes, my aunt was talking to, I remember she would talk to my mother, and, you know, they were having their grown-up talk. So I couldn't be involved in that. I didn't even know what they were talking about. But sitting between her knees and that mayonnaise, you know, and you weren't going to argue, like, why are you putting that in my hair?
Oh, mayonnaise is the best.
Yes.
It's so good.
And who knew?
I know.
Do you know, like, really, we were so into, like, Sulfur 8 or Dax or whatever that was, you know, at that time. Who knew?
Afro Sheen.
Oh, yeah, it's really, when you talk, the legacy that you've inherited is incredible, and what's really the beauty of it is that you're carrying it forward.
Take this, because I have other copies.
You wrote this in a healing grove, and it just floored me when you said that we are African Americans, meaning we are African descendants, African people, but we're here like in this space, and I'm paraphrasing because you say it much more powerfully, but that it makes us the newest and the oldest people.
Yeah, that type L, it's called a halogroup, I think. Halotype. I'm forgetting now, but it's one of those two. And that's what we are. We are the oldest, yeah, and some of the newest.
And it's incredible when you put it like that.
Yeah. It's nice to, gosh, we've just been put down so much. Everything about us has been put down, and our practices were outlawed, and it's so hard to make a comeback, you know, to come back and be strong on our feet. But I think we're doing it.
I do too. I do too.
In large numbers.
For you to come out too, and I think that's also part of it. When you say we've been put down, that could be part of the secrecy too. Like I mean, you know, I'm not out about everything that I do either, because I'm just not, you know. I mean, just in terms of, you know, sometimes I mention the Orishas on my blog, but whether or not you know, like, why am I mentioning that? And it's partially also, it's a little bit rebellious, because I do feel like I've heard so much about Aphrodite and Artemis.
Exactly.
And it's like, there is something that we do, you know, and when you go, you know, if you go to the herbal conference, to the women's herbal conference, see, you would be bringing that, right? Because it's not there, and it's not because somebody doesn't want it there. It's because they just don't know. And maybe they do know, and they're not exactly sure what that is or what that's about, you know. But I mean, Venus, you know, and then Pachamama, which is beautiful. It's like we also have all of this.
Yes, and more.
Yes, and it needs to be put there in the forefront as well.
That's what I was thinking.